Hi guys, I wanted to talk about why I'm worried for the 6v6 tests coming to Overwatch 2. Now, there's a lot of reasons why I might be worried, but it's kind of, there's a lot of thoughts that have been going through my head as we approach the 6v6. The Marvel Rivals is practically just like less than a month away. And, this is a very, very crucial moment for Overwatch to not only allow fans to experience something that they enjoy, but make sure that the experience that they are going into is a good, true to heart experience. Now, the reason I started feeling this way today, I was gonna have a different video coming out today, but I recently tried out this, quick play hack, the open queue. Each role is limited by two heroes, and the more I played this game mode, the more I really realized most people are just playing multi-tank, multi-support compositions. And what does this prove about Overwatch? Well, I mean, it's the one obvious thing that we all know, that tanks and supports as roles have marginally always been stronger than DPS. That is why DPS at one point in Overwatch's life was a completely irrelevant role for almost 3 years at the higher levels of play. Then on the other side, even now, the game has been adjusted in the 5v5 setting, to the point where the DPS role just feels very awkward unless you're playing a character like Widowmaker, who I would argue that she's probably the only actual DPS in the game right now that you can you have to respect. Otherwise, most of the DPS picks right now are just kind of I would go as far as to call DPS as the quote unquote support role. Like, you're meant to just support what your tank and supports want to do, etc. etc. You guys see where I'm getting at, right? Regardless, that's not my point. My point is, what does this mean for the bigger picture of the game? The thing that scares me the most is when we do go into the 6v6 tests, the biggest problem is we're not necessarily starting with the 2-2-2 that we all knew and loved and enjoyed, and majority of the community agreed upon, that this 2-2-2 version of the game is the best middle ground, because you have two tanks, two DPS, and two supports. There's no reason to go above two tanks, no reason to go more than two DPS, no reason to go more than two supports, because once you open this up in areas like open queue, you will always see multi-tank, multi-support compositions that are going to dominate the game. What's really is concerning to me, that going into December, the first 6v6 test that we have, this test is the first impression to the new Overwatch community that this is what 6v6 felt like. Now the problem is that we are not starting with the original 2-2-2. We are starting with something which is more of a quick play hack than it is an actual revisit into the past. It is a 6-player experience where you can have minimum of one character overall, and then three maximum. With all due respect to Blizzard, what are they expecting here? It is extremely obvious that we're going to get the best composition for something like this is going to be a combination of double tank, Mei, who's practically a mini tank, plus a triple support. It is always going to go down the GOATS route. Then in the current quick play hack, which is the each role is limited by two heroes, we're seeing the double tank, double support, one DPS as well, which is in 5v5. And the idea here again is you cannot balance this out. Now, for what it's worth, some people are like, hey, in my games I'm seeing this and that. Guys, the thing is like, playing it in quick play and all these like different scenarios, it's very everybody's ranks are all over the place. It's a very hard way to get accurate data, but these type of things have been tested. These type of things, we've had 6 years worth of data. Anytime you try to have a civil discussion about this situation, that why are we trying to constantly test whether we should open up the game again from the perspective of like open queue or something like that, when the answers are always going to be that, well, actually it's just going to end up being a multi-tank, multi-support composition. Does Blizzard really think that people can try to make a multi-DPS composition against tanks work? It just doesn't. And the simple reason for that is the problem that we still have today, that is a problem that was there in Overwatch 1 as well, is that supports do not get rightfully nerfed. Adjusting the tank HP pools, cooldowns, and how they interact is the easy part, but what really enables the multi-tank compositions is the power of the support role. Now, if the support role is never ever going to be dealt with, never ever going to be rightfully nerfed, and whenever the role becomes slightly weak, it gets gigabuffed into a completely different extreme, it will continuously ruin the flow of this game. It will continuously keep us in this like state of the game where the best way to play is like clumped up in one big ball, where this is exactly how goats came to be, where the game was less about taking, space around the map and just more about moving together as one. And a lot of that had to do with the AoE healing that Brigitte brought into the game. Even in 222, while we did have double shield, and double shield excelled in being able to sit in one area, what was able to allow that composition to really stay in that one area and stay alive and maintain that one space that they wanted to control was Baptiste's AoE healing. So I ask of you the same question today, is that what are we trying to learn here? What are we trying to do here that we've not already done before? Again, going into the 6v6 experiments, my fear is that why are we not doing the original 2 tank, 2 DPS, 2 support first? Why do we have to do this garbage of, 3 max and then 1 min? We all know that, assuming, let's say, we tested it in a high levels of play environment, it is extremely obvious that another version of GOATs would just become extremely viable, especially with what we have now. Like, imagine Brigitte, Juno, Lucio. Brigitte, Juno, Lucio would be so scary, or any, combination of like supports and tanks right now. Like, imagine like clumping Mauga in there as the tank melter, then Diva, then Winston, like running some weird like dive-ish style, or there's like many ways that you can figure out these comps of what you can do. And then of course in the 3 max and 1 min test, you have the fact that you have to play at least 1 DPS, and that DPS will almost always either be Mei, because she's just pretty much a tank in the body of a DPS for some reason, in the role of the DPS. Sorry. Then you might play Reaper if the comp is a little bit more vulnerable, but I don't see Reaper working that well. And you can go back in time to where we used to play the Sombra Goats comps, where one tank would get swapped out for Sombra, and that could still it could still work. It could definitely, the Sombra, albeit she's a little bit weaker right now, she can still make the EMP playstyle work. If anybody is familiar, you can definitely do hack fist comps. I actually really love hack fist comps, but that's besides the point. My point is that with all these quote-unquote tests that Overwatch is doing, this quick play hacked, we're gonna visit 6v6 from this perspective, that perspective, this perspective. The fact that you're not revisiting the 6v6 that people enjoyed first from a development team standpoint, I feel like, isn't that going to negatively affect the experience of the community? And then the developers can pull a, well, I told you so, that people didn't like 6v6 and we're gonna stay in 5v5. Like, why not do the original 6v6 first, so the new player base understands what it's all about, and then move on to testing different styles? Also, with all due respect, if by the time that we can test 6v6 and all that stuff, right, why is it that we have to test it? Why can't it become a mainstay? Why can't, like, for example, they didn't test 5v5, they just forced us into it, right? They forced us into 5v5. So why can't we just kind of flip the switch and go back? By the time 6v6 comes online, their arguments about the technical difficulties and everything should be taken care of. So why, again, my question is constantly becoming, why are we still testing things? This game has been out for now 10 years. Happy anniversary to Overwatch. I have nothing but love for it. But what I just do not understand, that this is the only game in existence that never has any idea on what it wants to do with itself. And even today, their events, their content is them just swapping the format a little bit and expecting you to fall for their, like, artificial change to the game, that, oh, by the way, it's a completely new experience. It's content. Content is you putting things into the game that change the gameplay experience. Turning off and on a roll and just like making workshop changes. I'm sorry, this is not content. Content is that amazing Junkenstein's lab gibbo that they put in, that I've been praising pretty much in every video I've made this season. But I cannot pull away from the fact that then going from that to this quick play hacked with this open queue, each role is limited by 2 heroes or whatever, and now we know that the first 6v6 test is going to be the 3 max 1 min. I don't know, man. All of this is just beginning to spell disaster for the game. Especially, like, think about it. The biggest issue that the game is going to face is going to be the public perception, right? I don't think Marvel Rivals will kill Overwatch, but public perception is extremely important. Overwatch really needs to recover the name that they've lost. And when people come back for the 3 max 1 min experience, at least the way I see it, and again, multi-tank compositions. If you play open queue in quick play, even now it's multi-tank compositions. Even this new quick play hacked is just multi-tank compositions. So when you have people just running into multi-tank compositions and they're not having fun, they're not enjoying the game, the perception will just be, well, Overwatch cannot figure out anything. Why don't we all just go play Marvel Rivals? Marvel Rivals has its own problems, will have its own issues and everything. That's a different story. But the perception is Marvel Rivals good, Overwatch bad, and that alone will continue to damage the community. And again, look, man, I don't want to go conspiracy theory or something like that. I have respect for the devs. I've played this game for like 8+ years, loved it for 10 since its announcement. And the thing is I want to see it succeed. But with all due respect to the developers, why the hell for the first 6v6 test would you ever put a quote-unquote quick play hack rather than give the original experience? I think Flats talked about this as well, where he said that why the hell are you doing this first as well, when this has potential to just sabotage the game, damage the perception of 6v6, and then cause chaos, and then the devs can pull that, well, we told you so, 5v5 was the better format, so we're just going to stick with 5v5 and we're not doing 6v6 anymore. I don't know. And not to mention that this is the final opportunity for Overwatch to really, they're gonna use nostalgia obviously a little bit. Like once we get closer to the test, they're gonna do their promo videos, they're gonna hype it up that welcome back to 6v6 and all this stuff. And I don't know, man, like I want to see the game succeed, but I'm just worried that the closer we get to the 6v6 test, the worse I feel, because even for like the current quick play hack, they didn't even bother changing the way the tank abilities are interacting. Like you can have a Zarya bubble, both Zarya bubbles on your Reinhardt as he's engaging, and he's practically immortal, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. It's a nightmare. And that's my, and I know they said for 6v6 they will have balance changes and things like that, but I don't know, man. It's just their track record is so hard to get behind them. It's so hard to get behind them and say, okay, they understand the best interest of the community. I don't know if they do. I really don't know if they understand what the community wants or what they need. Anyways, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. As always, if you want to support the channel, easy way to do that is just by hitting like and subscribe.